On today's bonus mini episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we're going to be previewing the huge title clash as leaders Liverpool travel down to the Emirates Stadium to take on followers Arsenal. We're going to be trying to predict their tactical setups, how they're going to be lining up, and where those key battles might be throughout the game, ultimately predicting who's going to come out on top.
Thank you everyone for watching this video. Yes, it's a bonus episode, and we thought what better time to do this, as I'm a Liverpool fan, Toby is an Arsenal fan, and it just makes for the perfect recipe. And yes, it is a clash that's going to have massive ramifications for the top of the table. And in watch with, I think both teams can go into this game fairly confident. We do have to say though that we're recording this on the Monday before the midweek fixtures, before Arsenal go away to Nottingham Forest and Liverpool are at home to Chelsea. So that could impact how this plays out. But I think it's close enough that we can fairly confidently talk about the game ahead. And it's one where, from the Liverpool perspective, I'm fairly confident going into it. I think the fact that Liverpool won against Arsenal at the Emirates in the FA Cup, that kind of gives Liverpool a lot of confidence. You got the draw early on at Anfield, the win in the FA Cup, and now you're going again to Arsenal. And I think what's really important is that Liverpool didn't have Mo Salah in that FA Cup game. They won't have Salah again. But the fact that we still got the win despite that, I think gives us a lot of confidence. Going into the game, we've just come back on the back of beating Norwich 5-2, but obviously the announcement that Klopp's leaving, I think that announcement will give Liverpool a bit more added emphasis, and it'll really motivate the squad rather than anything else, rather than bring it down. And I think it's one where Liverpool will be going into it and going for the win. I don't think they'll be settling for a draw, and I think it's one where they're capable of getting the win. How do you see it going from your perspective into the Arsenal game, Toby?
Yeah, I think I actually feel pretty confident as an Arsenal fan as well. So it's interesting we are both feeling the same way. I think that in recent weeks, our main struggle has been scoring goals. And for me, I think I'd much rather have that than the problems we had towards the start of the season where we were actually struggling to create the chances. I think the goal scoring will come, and I think that the amount of chances we have been created is really, really good and really positive, and it's just about being a little bit more clinical. And I think now that we saw that in the Palace game, that we did take those chances fantastically well, albeit against obviously a weaker side than Liverpool, it was a good sign, and it was a game that came at the right time. In terms of Liverpool, the game that I most recently watched being the Bournemouth game, where they did win 4-0, but strangely enough, me watching that, I thought there's not too much in this team that is really, really worrying me in terms of their midfield and their attack, certainly. I think the only sort of player that I would need to keep my eye on, I think, is Jota. And I think if he plays either on the right or on the left, I think it could cause us some problems, especially White hasn't been in the best form. Zinchenko does have some defensive fragilities that have been exploited in the past, especially those balls over the top in behind him. That's where I think he does struggle. 1v1 defending, he's actually not too bad and his stats are pretty decent, but it is that space in behind, especially as I think we're going to be setting up to try and keep the ball and have a very high amount of possession, as we have done all season. Zinchenko hopefully inverting alongside Rice. Havertz and Odegaard, I could probably imagine playing just that bit further forward and joining into a front five. Hopefully Jesus is starting. Hopefully Martinelli is starting after a really good appearance against Palace. Seems like he's back and doing what he does best, really direct and driving and getting in the box. And as you said, I feel pretty confident. I think we can really dominate this game and get a really, really strong performance. I'm very excited for it, but I just think it's going to be a few certain key battles in the pitch, which I think could swing it either way ultimately.
Yeah, it's all well and good being confident about your team's performance, but it's all about getting the result, Toby, isn't it? Which Liverpool have done at the Emirates already this season. I do agree and disagree about the Bournemouth game. I think there's two sides to every story. I think one perspective is you can look at it and go, Liverpool won that threatening but still got the 3 points. But on the other hand is me going, Liverpool weren't at their best, but we're still able to smash an informed Bournemouth side 4-0. And I'm going to go with that narrative as a Liverpool fan. I think Liverpool on that day weren't great, but still absolutely dismantled Bournemouth, who on form were top of the league along with Liverpool in terms of the last 10 fixtures. And I think for me, what's really interesting is without Salah, it could be any of our front three forwards that are starting in those positions. I don't think it'll be Harvey Elliott starting in the game against Arsenal in the front three, because of the fact that I think he might be starting on the right against Chelsea to nullify Ben Chilwell. I could be wrong in that, but I think it'll be one where it could be any of Diaz, Jota, Nunes, or Gakpo. And I think for me, Nunes, Jota, or Diaz will be playing on the left-hand side and really be trying to cause Ben White some trouble, because he did give us some trouble in the FA Cup game, and it was actually putting him, getting him running towards his own goal when it was Nunes who moved out to the left, will be the area which I think will be the one where Liverpool try to nullify him. And on the other side, like you said, with Zinchenko, I think it could potentially be either Jota, Diaz, or Gakpo. It won't be Nunes. But I think I kind of like the idea of Gakpo playing on that right-hand side, just because I think he can do it the best out of the three in terms of a defensive performance. And I think he can be one where if Zinchenko goes into midfield, Gakpo can follow him into the midfield as well and try and nullify him, because obviously he's played some games as a number 10, some games as a number 8 for Liverpool. But really in the defence is where there's a bit of a selection headache, weirdly, because with Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold being out injured, their cover in Gomez and Connor Bradley, the young kid coming up, have actually really excelled in the positions. So it's one where, do you replace them? They've only just come back into the team. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold would definitely be starting the game. I think the Chelsea one is maybe 50-50 whether him or Bradley start. But I think the Arsenal one, Trent will definitely be starting. The question is, Gomez on the left back playing so well this season. Do you take him out or bring him for Robertson? He's been out for 3 months now, Robertson. I think it's one where I think Gomez will be playing at left back, because I think he had such a good game against Saka that I think defensively it'll be one where Gomez, I think, can have Saka on toast if he has a great performance. But I think if Saka turns up on the day, he will ultimately get the better Gomez. We'll have to see how that plays out. And I think in terms of midfield, I think it will be McAllister, Szoboszlai, who's just recently returned, and I think it will be Curtis Jones, who has been phenomenal for Liverpool this season. Of course, with Alisson Becker in goal, and the centre backs of Kanate and Van Dijk. And I think it's one where that Liverpool side, the fact that we've got options despite the injuries is something that's really, really encouraging. And I think it's one where Liverpool can get the performance. I think it'll be tough because we've got Chelsea midweek and then Arsenal. I think I want 6 points out of those two games. I think I'll take 4 and hopefully win the position where we've beaten Chelsea midweek, so we can afford to take a point if needed, depending on how the game goes. Do you think Arsenal need to get the win, or do you think you could be happy with the draw depending on the circumstances?
I think we could get a point and it wouldn't be a massive negative. I don't think it would mean that we can't win the league. If we get a point, we're still only 5 points off, if assuming obviously we win our game in hand and you do the same. And if we win, we're only 2 points off. So I think it's not going to be the end of the world if we get a point, but I definitely think we will be going for the win, because it will be a huge sentiment, I think, for the season, and a big moment that hopefully will really push us on. I think, as you were talking about the defence, I think whoever is going to be playing fullback, I think is going to have a really tough day for Liverpool. I think if it's Trent Alexander-Arnold, he has never coped particularly well with Martinelli's style of play. He really does struggle with very direct wingers who like to dribble, as opposed to those who sort of run in behind. He has had a couple very good games, Martinelli, against Liverpool and against Trent. And I think if it's Connor Bradley, I think that would be pretty harsh from Klopp to drop him into such a huge game. Whether it is Martinelli or Trossard playing, I think it would be pretty surprising if Bradley does play in that game. I think he'd probably sacrifice Trent's maybe defensive side to play in the midfield and try and get those long balls and that attacking output from Trent, essentially. I think it'd be an output that you will need in that game. In terms of the left back, I think Gomez did have a good second half against Saka, and I think he locked him off. But there was times where he just doesn't look quite natural at left back. He is a very, very good defender, very strong, very quick, and he can do a job there. But I think if we can get that right-sided overload like we do with Odegaard, Saka and White, I think Gomez will struggle. He is going to need whoever is playing as that left 8 or even that left wing to drop back and help out. I can imagine it will probably be Diaz on that left side, because he does sometimes stick out very wide and he'll drop back in to help Gomez out. But I think for us, I think it depends if those key players can step up. I think we really, really do need Saka in this game to step up. It's been 5 or 6 games now where he hasn't been incredible. He hasn't shone as much as he has in the last couple of seasons. And this is a game where we really, really need him to step up. We know what Jesus is going to do. We know what Odegaard is going to do. They're very, very quick, very technical, but they need those players to go in behind and put the chances away like we saw last season. So I think I think both ways the battle is going to be the wingers versus the fullbacks. I think in terms of a midfield, I think Rice is going to be able to get a pretty decent foothold on the ball. I don't think you're going to be pressing super hard and super high. So I think he's going to be able to get a good hold on the ball, and I think that midfield will sit a little bit deeper than maybe we see for Liverpool. And I think the midfield could dominate the area, maybe where Havertz is. He is probably our weakest link in that midfield. So for me, that's the key areas. Wingers against fullbacks on both sides, and potentially those midfield players just ahead of Rice, I think is where it could go either way, depending on who turns up and how they turn up.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious. It's going to be fullbacks versus the wingers, and that's going to be where the battle is won. I do have to say, I don't think it'll be too harsh if Conor Bradley does start, because I think his performances have warranted him starting at right back, if that's what the cause is and that's what Liverpool need. I will say, though, I think if Trent Alexander-Arnold is 100% fit, then I think he does play, because Klopp and this Liverpool side is all about making the most out of your what are your talents that are best and playing to your strengths rather than playing to the opposition. And I think if Bradley was to play, it would be maybe a negative sign or signal to Arsenal and being like, okay, we're actually quite fearful of you. I think we are, and rightfully so, despite the jokes I made. I mean, you've got to be respectful of Arsenal. It is away at the Emirates. But I think it will be Trent in that right back, inverting into midfield. And I think Martinelli, who has, and I totally agree, has had some really good games against Liverpool and Trent Alexander-Arnold in particular, I think he'll have to deal with Ibrahim Konate, and I think Liverpool will shift that back four into a back three when in possession. Because I think Trent offers you so much going forward that I think he just has to play really if he is fit. And against Arsenal, I think Liverpool will be priming him for that Arsenal game. So I think it is one where it will be Liverpool will be asking Martinelli to bring it on and to do your worst, and I think he will, and I think it'll be one where it'll be very interesting to see. I think if you're an older fan watching, I think you're like, Trent's got to defend more, Trent's got to defend more. But I think if you're a modern fan, yeah, I think you kind of understand that, Trent's going to leave that space, and you've got to hope for the best. It will be interesting who plays in Liverpool's front three. I think it is very fluid, and I think we see often that, like, even at half time, it changes between who it is. I don't necessarily think Gomez needs too much support at left back from his winger. I think that will come from the midfield of Curtis Jones, who has been exceptional for Liverpool. And as we saw, like we said in the FA Cup game, which I've referenced already, is Nunes up against Ben White when that change happened in the second half. Ben White didn't get involved because he had to worry about Nunes going the other way. So I think between Gomez and Jones, they can handle Odegaard and Saka. Like I said, if on the day that they decide to perform, but it is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. But I think it is one where they should be able to cope well, considering as well, especially that Diaz had a fantastic second half in that FA Cup game, playing off the right against Zinchenko. Sorry, not Zinchenko, Kivior was playing that game. But yeah, I think it's one where it could be any number of possible players starting. And I think that's what's really exciting, is that I think Liverpool know what Arsenal team is going to come up against it, but I don't think Arsenal know 100%. And it could be one where, depending on who plays, it could catch Arsenal out.
Yeah, a lot of it, I think, as well as that, maybe that uncertainty about which Liverpool players are going to be playing. It depends how much we are going to press and how much we're going to commit to try and keep that ball. I think there is still a huge risk in if you can get that ball past our press into your midfield and you can get like a long ball, you can get an outlet into any of Nunes, Diaz and Jota. If you can get that into that space behind, that's where we're really going to struggle. And I'm very intrigued to see if Arteta's going to stick with our classic 4-4-2 pressing structure, really high press, or if he is going to sit it back a little bit and maybe say, we don't want to risk this in the first half. We don't want to risk a counter-attack, because I think you will probably sit back in that first half especially and look for those counters. And I think Arteta might just reduce the press a little bit. Certainly after the first sort of 5-10 minutes, I think he'll sit back and maybe not press too much. And then in terms of the other part, will Klopp allow Trent to invert all the time? Will he have that commitment, or will they be worried about if we win that ball back and if our press does work and we win that ball back high and there are spaces for our players to run into? So in that sense, I'm a little bit worried that it could be a bit of a stalemate in that first half. Especially the first 25, 30 minutes, I think both teams will suss out how the other one is playing first before committing anything too much. I don't think either team will be pressing super, super high in that first half, as we do normally see from both of them, because I think, given the occasion, how big the game is, it's a bit of a risk. But saying that, who knows? Klopp could come out and just be like, screw it, we're going to go all out and we're going to try and win this game in the first half. And Arteta could do exactly the same, especially with the way the game went last time. Arsenal really were on the front foot in that first half. So it could be trying to replicate that, with the only difference being us trying to actually convert our chances and not letting you win that second half like you did. So it could go one of two ways. It will be either way. I think it'll be a great game, whether it's a 0-0 draw and there's loads to talk about tactically, or both teams go all out, put all their attacking strength in, and it's a 3-3 draw. I'm very excited either way for however it pans out.
I completely agree. And just one final point on that. I think in the cup game, Klopp went for it, and he 100% went for it, and we're either going to win this game or we're going to lose this game. And thankfully we won it, but that's because it was a cup game, and I think he didn't want the replay and the more fixture conjections, considering the fact that we're already in the Carabao Cup semi-final, we're already in the Europa last 16, and I think another game would have added more minutes into legs of players that we couldn't really afford. It would be interesting to see if Klopp is that brave in this game, because I think I do completely agree. I think the first half could be a potential stalemate unless I think there's a moment of brilliance from either set of players, which I think can definitely happen. But it'd be interesting to see in the second half, in the last 30, in the last 10, what kind of direction do both managers go? Do they go for the win? Do they settle for a draw? Because at the end of the day, it is a league game and there still are 16, 17, 18 more games left of the season. It could be one where, one manager decides, do you know what, a draw on the day will be fine. And in my opinion, I do think that Liverpool will go for the win, and I think that they could get it, and I'm choosing to be positive. So I think for my score prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Liverpool on the day. What are your thoughts?
I think that we are going to have a really good quick start. I think we are probably going to go a goal up maybe in the first half an hour. I then think that you might nab a goal just before half time to make it 1-1. And then I think hopefully we can go out and have a really good start to the second half and grab a goal or two. So I'm going to go and be really positive and say it's going to be Arsenal 3, Liverpool 1.
Wow, ballsy prediction, but it could very well come true. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the game. Obviously, we'll be covering it here on the Football Fellowship podcast on the Tuesday for you. We're recording our reactions on the Monday. We'll get it out to you on the Tuesday. And we'll see. It could be a title decider. It could be an absolute flop of a game. Hopefully, it's the first rather than the latter. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this bonus episode, and we'll see you in the next one.